So listen. So till now, whatever we saw were the concepts like this. As we know, this chapter is concerned about moving charges and magnetism. Means when a charged particle is moving, when you have a current flowing within a conductor, there is magnetic field around it. That is what we saw in the beginning, right? So we try to calculate what is the magnetic field due to a straight current carrying conductor and a circular current carrying conductor. We did it. We finished it. Then that is we basically studied Biot-Savart law and we saw its applications. Then the second part of the chapter, what we concentrated on was you already had magnetic field. So to the already existing magnetic field, if you try to project a charged particle into it, what are all the different directions and trajectories it is going to travel in? So that was a previous concern. So that was a previous concern. Then we saw a concept named as velocity selector. Now what we are going to do is we are going to see what will happen if a current carrying conductor itself is placed in a magnetic field. So this is the third part that you need to understand. So write down the heading as current carrying conductor placed in external magnetic field. Okay. So let's say there is a magnetic field existing like this. Okay. So the magnetic field is going to be into the plane of the paper. Now in this plane, if suppose I place a conductor in this way, there is a current carrying conductor which is carrying the current in the rightward direction. If I place it like this, now we are going to analyze what exactly is going to happen to this conductor. See, one thing is already clear to us that there will be a magnetic field created due to the current carrying conductor itself. But here what is happening, this current carrying conductor is placed in the external magnetic field produced due to some other conductor. Okay, it might be a conductor, it might be a magnet, we don't know what it is, but there is a magnetic field already existing. Let's say its value is D, and let's say the current carrying conductor is I, and let me take the length of the current carrying conductor to be L. Okay. Now we are going to calculate what is going to be what exactly is going to happen to it. Can someone tell me, can you guess what exactly would happen to it? Say suppose I have a current carrying conductor. I'm drawing a free body diagram, okay? So when I say the current is flowing in this direction, when I say the current is flowing in the rightward direction, what can I say about the direction of flow of electrons?
Opposite direction.
Opposite direction, right? There's an umpire. Now see how we are going to connect the topics. So there is an electron and the electron travels in the opposite direction. So if I say this is a steady state current, what is the speed with which the electron is actually going to travel within the conductor? There is a technical name for it, right? The first topic which we saw in our third chapter.
Drift velocity.
Drift velocity. So it travels with the speed of V into D. So I'm saying the length of the conductor is L. Okay, till here it is fine. Now, when I say current is flowing through the conductor, indirectly I'm going to say that charges are also flowing within the conductor, obviously, right? Now, what will happen when a charged particle is moving within the conductor, within the external magnetic field? That was our previous topic. When charges are placed in the when charges are moving the external magnetic field, what will happen to them? They start. Can you complete the statement? They start experiencing. They start experiencing a force. Very good. So they start experiencing a force of how much value? So the electron within the conductor experiences a force of how much value? Experiences a force of how much value? You know this answer. So charged particle moving in an external magnetic field. We saw one formula. Many problems we did based on it.
QE.
Q into V cross V. So Q into V vector cross V vector. If I write it like this, then there is going to be F vector. Then what is the direction of F vector? F vector is equal to the charge that is flowing through the conductor is minus E. right? So it is going to be, I'm calculating the force experienced by one electron as of now, but there will not be one electron. Let's say there are n electrons, that we will see later. So what is going to be the velocity of the electron? It will be Vd vector, or I will put it like this. Can I write it as Vd? Tell me the vectors according to me. What is the direction of Vd? It is minus minus I cap. Cross, what is the direction of B? It is going to be B in the direction of minus K cap. So this also understood. Right. So this will be like this. F vector will be equal to minus E into Vd into B. Can I write it as minus I cap cross minus K cap is going to be I cap cross K cap. I can write it like this. So what is I cross K?
Minus J.
Minus J. So, right. So minus J and minus will get cancelled. So can I write it as E into Vd into B in the direction of J cap, the overall vector. So what I'm trying to say in this case is, if suppose there is a particular scenario like this. What is that scenario? If the magnetic field is into the plane of the paper, if the current in the conductor is flowing to the right and it is placed in a magnetic field, the electrons inside it start getting drifted in the upward. I'll not say drifted, they start experiencing a force. What force is that? A magnetic force in the upward direction. Can I say it like this? So that is because of the Lorentz force. So this is the force experienced by how many electrons? Just by one electron. If I say if n electrons are there, okay, if n electrons are present within the conductor, if n electrons are present within the conductor, can I say the total force? I'll put it like this. Sum of all the forces will be equal to N into E into Vd into B in the direction of J cap. I can write it like this. See, all the electrons experience the force in the upward direction, obviously. It is because of the drift velocity. Drift velocity is going to give you a particular direction. Now, the manipulation that I'm going to do here is, I will divide this Ne with T and I will compensate it with T like this into B in the direction of J cap. So what is N into T according to the first chapter? It is the quantization of charge. So the total charge that is flowing through the conductor divided by T into what is speed into time? It is nothing but the distance, right? So what is the distance across which the electrons are traveling? That is nothing but the length of the conductor, L, into B. I get it as J cap, right? So what is this Q by T? The rate of flow of charge is called as
Current.
current. So I into L into D in the direction of J cap. So this is going to be the force experienced by whom? By the conductor itself. There is a force experienced by the conductor when it is placed in external magnetic field. Okay, so this is a general formula. Now what I need to do is, there's a particular situation formula because I'm using J cap. Not every time it is going to be J cap. So I have to derive a general formula. So when I do this based on the observation, it is written as the force experienced by the conductor is written as I into L vector cross B vector. Okay, it is only I into L cross B, don't write it as B cross L. So if you want to write it in the scalar form, you will write it as BIL into sine theta, where theta is what? Theta is the angle between the direction of current and the magnetic field. Am I clear with this? So these are the two formulae based on which we are going to see certain concepts. So if you're clear with this only, I can proceed. Everyone is clear?
Sir, can you please scroll a little upwards? So
Sure. I'll do that. Is the concept clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So till where should I scroll? Here, is this fine?
Why have you written
Yes, sir.
B minus K cap?
Sorry, I didn't get you. Why are we taking minus K cap?
Yes, sir.
It is because, see, I have drawn the direction. I have drawn the direction of magnetic field into the plane. Into the plane means away from you. Anything away from you is minus K cap. That is the reason. Is this the page from where you people want to copy, or should I scroll it down?
This is the page, sir.
Okay. Make it fast.
Sir, can you scroll down a bit?
Yeah, I'll do.
Sir,
Yeah, tell me.
sir, should we follow this derivation or the derivation given in the book, sir?
This derivation will generally not be asked. It is only for your understanding.
Yes, sir.
Okay. But you need to know this formula clearly, okay? You need to know how to apply it along with proper direction. See, wherever cross products are involved, you have to be very careful.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just a minute. So, what I'm going to do is I'll explain how to find the direction of force. One is obviously one of the methods with which you can find the direction of force experienced by the current carrying conductor is using the cross product. Since you people know this already, you can do it. For example, I give you a question like this. If I say there is a magnetic field present in this way, let's say I'm placing a current carrying conductor exactly perpendicular to it at an angle of 90 degrees. Let's say the current flowing through the conductor is I and the length of this is L. So what is going to be the force? F will be equal to B into I into L into sine of 90 degrees. Remember, L will take the direction of current. Just like how we did in Biot-Savart, we wrote IDL, no? I told you DL will take the direction of current. Similarly here, L will take the direction of current. So BAL sine 90 degrees. So this will be B into I into L. Now if I ask you what is the direction, if I put it as a vector, what will you say?
J cap.
So how did you get that? So you need to do L cross B, right? L is what direction?
J cap.
L is in J cap cross. What is the direction of B vector?
I can.
I cap. So what is J cross L?
Minus K cap.
It is minus K. It is away from you. Minus K cap is the answer. Right. This is what vectors is telling us. Remember, see for Biot-Savart law, what are the two methods that can be used to find the direction of the magnetic field?
Right hand rule.
Right hand thumb rule is one of the cases, and the vectors obviously. So similarly here also you have vectors, and you have a famous rule also, and this you have learned in your
Fleming's
test.
left hand.
Very good. It is Fleming's left hand rule. You have learned this in your test. So Fleming's left hand rule. So what is the state? It is not thumb rule, okay? Because you are using three fingers. We call that right hand rule as right hand thumb rule because thumb is mainly used of the right hand. So here it is Fleming's left hand rule. So what does this rule state? Extend the, anybody who knows? Extend the, what are the three fingers?
Thumb finger, index finger, and the middle finger.
Forefinger, the central
Center
finger,
finger.
and thumb. And how are you supposed to open them?
Mutually
Yeah,
perpendicular.
mutually perpendicular to each other.
Mutually perpendicular to each other, such that what will they do?
Thumb finger shows the force.
Forefinger shows the direction of field. Central finger shows the direction of
Induced current.
Correct.
who used induced current? Induced is not right. Here no current is induced. Induced means creating. So don't have it is only current which is already existing. It is not induced current. Induced current you need to find using right hand rule. Okay, don't use that word. Central finger shows the direction of current through the conductor, and thumb shows the direction of thrust. That is nothing but force. So why I wrote thrust is because you can remember it like this. Forefinger starts with F, field also starts with F. Central finger starts with C, current also starts with C. Thumb starts with T, and thrust also starts with T. Okay, so this is going to be the case. Now the same scenario, I will tell you how to apply it and what mistake you're not supposed to do. Okay. See, if the current is like this, okay. So here there are three parameters involved. So out of the three parameters, when you're using this particular rule, the direction of 2 will be known and the direction of 1 will be unknown. So observe, I'm switching on my video. Observe what you're supposed to do. So if this is the direction of field, okay, this is the direction of current. When this is how things are. So what are the known parameters in this question? You know the direction of field, you know the direction of current, right? So which finger represents the direction of field? It is the forefinger. So don't extend all the three fingers simultaneously. Okay, don't extend all the three fingers. And remember one more thing, the central finger should be inward, don't put it outward, don't put it in the reverse direction. This should be in the upward direction, this should be like this, and this should be towards you. Okay, don't extend all the three at the same time. So first extend the forefinger in the direction of field and adjust it. So I have extended my forefinger, but field is not in this direction, it is in the rightward direction. So first adjust it. Okay, so I have fixed the direction of forefinger. Now I need not change this. Now extend the direction of, now extend the central finger because current is known. So extend the central finger, but this is not the direction. So what am I supposed to do? I need to reverse it. Okay, after you reverse it, then extend the thumb perpendicular to it. So this shows it is away from me. So away from me is minus k cap, and that is what you people do. So either you can use this theorem, either you can use this rule to find out the direction, or you can use the vector. Whichever is comfortable for you, you can go with it. I'm repeating it again. Extend. So don't extend all the three simultaneously. First extend the forefinger, fix the direction of field, then extend the central finger and adjust. Either it will be in the downward direction or upward, adjust it, then extend the thumb. The thumb will give you the direction of the resultant. Okay, so this is how you do. I hope there is no doubt. It's a very simple concept. Similarly, there might be a question like this. They can twist and ask, suppose I have a magnetic field already existing. I want the particle, let's say I'm projecting an alpha particle. What do you mean by alpha particle? It is helium 2 plus nucleus. So I'm projecting an alpha particle, means it's a proton with a sign of +2, right? It is a positive charge. So it is an alpha, I project an alpha particle. I'm saying the alpha particle should experience a force in the direction of k cap. I want the alpha particle to move towards me. So anything towards you is like this. So I'm saying this should be the direction of force. Now I'm asking a question, in which direction should this particle be projected?
Minus j cap.
How did you find it out?
Minus j.
So F vector will be equal to, so you people can again go with this concept. Since it's a positively charged particle, let us take it as Q into B vector cross B vector. So what should be the direction of force that I'm expecting? direction of force expected is k cap is equal to q into v. What we need to find, what is the direction of this cross? The direction of magnetic field is already fixed. V, in which direction? It is I cap. So which vector cross I cap will give you k cap?
J cap.
It is minus j cap. Again, go with the cycle. I, j, k. So j cross I is clockwise, minus k cap, but minus j cross I is k cap. Means in this question, what are you supposed to report? Maybe a 1 mark question. So the particle should be projected in the negative y direction so that it experiences a force towards us. If I twist the question like this, had I told instead of alpha particle, I'm projecting an electron, then what will be the answer? If alpha particle,
Yes, J cap.
it will be plus j cap. If alpha particle is replaced with an electron, how do I find? Again, I'll follow the same thing. Just because I took a positive particle, I'll not take. I'll apply the same rule. Q into B vector cross B vector. Right. By the way, this rule can be applied to find the direction of a charged particle also. In your 10th, you would have learned only for a current, for finding the force on a current carrying conductor. It is not necessary. You can find the force on a charged particle also. So F vector is equal to Q into V vector cross B vector. So if F vector is expected in the direction of K cap. So K cap is equal to, here what should I write? I should write minus E, okay, because it's a negatively charged particle. V, I need to find the direction, cross B in which direction? In the direction of I cap. So which vector cross I cap will give me K cap? It is minus J, right? But you already have a minus sign, so you're supposed to replace it with plus J. So J cross I will give you minus K cap, minus with the minus will give you plus K cap. So an electron is supposed to be projected in the upward direction for it to travel towards you, whereas a positively charged particle, a proton or alpha particle, should be projected in the downward direction for it to experience a force towards you. So these are the types of questions they can ask you. I hope this is clear. It's a simple one, right? So let's do one problem. Let's do there are two problems given, right? Look at example 4.1. So look at example 4.1. There is a straight wire, okay? There is a straight wire of mass 200 grams and length 1.5 meter, which carries a current of 2 ampere. So there is a straight wire of mass 200 grams and length 1.5 meter, which carries a current of 2 ampere. It is suspended in the mid-air by a uniform horizontal magnetic field. See, wherever you see uniform field, no, it is always parallel. Whether it is magnetic field or electric field, it is always a set of parallel rays. So you have a uniform horizontal magnetic field. What is the magnitude of the magnetic field? So here, if you observe one point, they have not told you, they have not mentioned in which direction the magnetic field is given. Right? They only told that there is a uniform horizontal magnetic field. Now it is our work to do all the analysis. So let's try to first visualize the question. If you see the straight wire has a mass of 200 grams and length of 1.5 meter. It is carrying a current of 2 ampere. Let's say there is a straight wire. Okay. So the straight wire has a length of 1.5 meter. It is carrying a current. It is up to us. Let us say I'm taking the current in the rightward direction. Okay. Now, if it has to be suspended in the mid-air, if I'm placing it on my hand, it is balanced because of what forces? One is its weight is acting in the downward direction and my hand is providing the normal reaction. Yes, it is balanced. Yeah, mg is balanced by the normal reaction. Right. So both are so mg is going to be balanced by the contact force normal. But if I have to suspend it in the air, then I need to have some force which is acting in the upward direction. Try to think about it. mg by default will act only in the downward direction. Gravity has a fixed direction. It is going to act towards the center of the earth. So mg is in the downward direction. But which force is going to balance that is acting in the upward direction?
Magnetic force.
Obviously, the magnetic force has to matter. Now, what did we do? We took the direction of I cap to be like this. Right? Direction of I cap, according to when I'm seeing from this side, I'm able to see it is in the direction of I cap. Now, what should be the direction of magnetic field I need to choose such that the magnetic force on this conductor is upwards?
J cap.
Is it K cap?
J cap.
No, J cap is the direction of force. I'm saying you're trying to say you want to give the direction of magnetic field in J cap. I'm asking what should be the direction of magnetic field for this conductor having a current in the rightward direction to experience a force in the upward direction. Magnetic force should be in the upward direction. Mg is always in the downward direction. If Fp is equal to mg, I can say that this is going to be suspended in midair. So I'm drawing the diagram up, sir. My pen. So the current is flowing through this. Mg is acting in the downward direction. So if the force has to act in the upward direction, what should be the direction? So let's do a rough work, no?
Minus K cap.
It should
Minus
be
K cap.
It should be minus K cap. F is equal to I into L vector cross B vector. I can write it like this also. So I means, remember, current is always taken as the direction in which the positive charges are moving. I'm repeating it. Current's direction is always the direction in which the positive charges are moving, because current always flows from higher to lower potential. Which charge has the tendency to flow from higher to lower? It is only the positive charge. So F is expected to be in the direction of J cap. So I is already in the direction of I cap, right? Cross B should be in which direction? So I cross something should give me J cap.
Minus K
Minus
cap.
K cap.
So I, J, K. Right? I cross K will give me minus J, so I cross minus K will give me J. So I hope you people got the logic. That is why if you see your textbook, they have done the same thing. Okay, so see, if you read the question, there is nowhere it is mentioned that the magnetic field is into the plane, but we have to do the analysis. I hope it is clear. Right? So force experienced is equal to B into I into L. Which force is this? This is a magnetic force. So if mg is balanced by B into I into L, what are they asking? What is the magnitude of the field? So B will be equal to mg divided by I into L. This is answer. Right? It's a simple problem. Mg divided by I into L. Substitution you people do and calculate it. Okay. Right? This is a simple problem. So those many Tesla is going to be the answer. Try to convert everything in terms of SI unit and then substitute. Next. Try to do the example 4.2. So what does example 4.2 state? One minute. Okay. So can you tell me what does example 4.2 mean? Can someone solve and tell me? So if the magnetic field is parallel to the positive y-axis, okay. So in this question, the y-axis is taken away from us. It is up to us to choose the axis. Not necessary that y should always be the positive. So if in the question they have changed, it is to be taken. So if the magnetic field is parallel to the positive y-axis and the charged particle is moving along the positive x-axis, which way would the Lorentz force be for an electron and for a proton? So you people can tell me.
For electron, it's minus K cap.
Okay, let me.
For proton, positive K cap.
So just tell me the steps. 4.2. F vector is equal to Q into V vector cross B vector, right? So direction of force F vector is equal to minus E for an electron. Velocity is in which direction? Positive x-axis.
I cap.
Cross B is in the direction of positive J cap.
J cap.
So I cross J is going to be K cap. Correct? I cross J is K cap with the minus sign will be minus K cap. So this will experience a force in the negative Z axis. So electron will experience a force in the negative Z axis. So obviously a proton will experience it in the opposite direction. It will experience in the positive Z axis. I hope it is clear. Easy. Right? Now, see in your textbook it is slightly jumbled. Just follow the order that I am going in. Now what we are going to do is, we will see what is the force between two parallel current carrying conductors. So what did we see first? So now today we started with force experienced by a current carrying conductor placed in magnetic field. Now what we are going to do is, you will have two current carrying conductors which are parallel to each other. Okay. So let's say there are two parallel current carrying conductors which are placed parallel to each other, separated by distance d. So the heading is going to be force between two parallel current carrying conductors. Right? So here we know two concepts. Observe. When you have a current carrying conductor, it produces magnetic field. I'm repeating it. You have a current carrying conductor, it produces magnetic field. And the second point is, when a current carrying conductor is placed in external magnetic field, it experiences force. So I will write it down. So what are the two facts known to us till now? Current carrying conductor produces magnetic field. Right? Similarly, current carrying conductor placed in external magnetic field experiences force. Right? So these are the two concepts known. So how I am going to solve this question is, observe. So if I take this as the first conductor, this as the second conductor, the conductors that you have considered here are of infinite length. Okay. So conductors considered are of infinite length. They are long current carrying conductors. They will not use the word infinite length. They will use long current carrying conductors. So in physics, long means infinite. So long current carrying conductors. Now observe. Now observe the theory I am writing. Due to the first conductor, which is on the left hand side, due to the first conductor, what is the magnetic field at a distance d from it? You go
U naught I 2 pi d.
U naught I by
2 pi d.
very good. So magnetic field due to the first conductor at a distance d is B1 is equal to mu naught I divided by 2 pi into d. One thing I will do is I will take the current in this conductor to be I1. I will take the current in this conductor to be I2. So it is B is equal to mu naught I1 divided by 2 pi d. If you have a doubt about this concept, there is a concept which is discussed under the straight current carrying conductor after Bayes law. You can have a revisit there. We did problems also based on it. Right. So can you tell me the direction? So according to the way I have taken the diagram, due to the first conductor, what will be the direction of magnetic field at the second conductor?
Minus k cap.
It is minus k cap. Very good. So it is going to be into the plane. Right? So it is like this. If I take a free body diagram, the first conductor is like this, I1. So at a distance d from it, there is a magnetic field which is into the plane. And the magnetic field's value B1 is given by the expression mu naught I1 divided by 2 pi into d. So if I have to write it in the, I'll do both the things. This for your understanding again, whichever is comfortable, you can take it. If you write in scalar form also, it is accepted. So if I write the same thing in B1 vector form, I will write it as mu naught I1 divided by 2 pi d in the direction of minus k. Okay. I'm more comfortable with vectors, I'm taking that. This is accepted also. Okay. Now, it is like this. The scenario is going to be like this. There is going to be a magnetic field here present due to whom? Due to the first current carrying conductor of value B1. In this there is a current carrying conductor of length, of infinite length again, obviously. I2 is placed. Okay. What will happen to this second current carrying conductor?
It experiences a force.
It experiences a force. So force experienced by the second current carrying conductor due to the first, F21, if I call it like this. Okay. If I say force experienced by the second current carrying conductor due to the magnetic field produced by the first conductor, then what will it be? There is only one formula for force experienced by current carrying conductor. What is it? It is I into
B vector cross L vector cross B
L
vector.
vector
Vector
cross
cross
B.
B vector.
So I is I2 into, here if you observe, we have taken an infinite length conductor, so it is not possible for us to define the length. So what we will do is, we will try to break it like this. I have taken a portion of it, let's say, the force experienced by the portion of the conductor of length L. See, why I am taking like this is, if this portion is experiencing a force in the rightward direction, since this is a solid, if I am pulling it here, it will move in the same way. It will move in the same direction. So if I take a part of it, I will be able to find the force. So I2 into, what is the length I need to take? L into, can you people tell me the direction?
J cap.
Very good. L into J cap cross.
B1 into minus K.
B1 minus K cap.
I'll write it as B1 vector and leave it as well. So I'll make it simple. I'm using the formula. I into L vector cross B vector. Okay. So F21 vector is like this. So F21 vector will be I is I2 into L vector is going to be L J cap cross. In the place of B, I can write it as mu naught I1 divided by 2 pi d into minus K cap. Can I write it like this? So when I do this, I take out all the scalar parts outside. So what are all the scalar parts? I'm putting a tick, observe. I2 is obviously a scalar part, L and mu naught I1. So it is going to be mu naught I1 into I2 divided by 2 pi into d, this whole multiplied with L, into what do I have? J cap
Minus I
cross
cap.
K. So J
Minus
cross
I
K,
cap.
it is minus I cap.
Minus I.
Right, so this you know. So mu naught I1 I2 divided by 2 pi d into L in the direction of minus I cap. Right, so this is going to be F21 vector. So F21 vector divided by length will be equal to mu naught I1 I2 divided by 2 pi into d in the direction of minus I cap. Correct? So for this concept, when you have two parallel current carrying conductors, it is not easy for you to find the force between them. Rather, you can find the force per unit length. So if I say F21 divided by L, it will be mu naught I1 I2 divided by 2 pi d. I'm ignoring the direction. Okay. So if I break it like this, then the magnitude is going to be mu naught I1 I2 divided by 2 pi d. This is called as the force per unit length. So F21 means what? The force experienced by the second conductor due to the magnetic field produced by the first conductor. Accepted? Now, I want you people to think and find out what is the value of F12 divided by L.
Minus mu naught I1 I2 by 2 pi d.
Is it going to be the same?
Yes.
Did you try? So what are the steps to be followed? So it will be minus I cap. So can you people, for the sake of practice, can you people follow the same steps that I did? If anybody wants to copy, let me know which page I should display.
So can you scroll a little bit up?
Here. Is this? Here or should I go down?
Sir, just from the text, sir, not the diagram.
Okay. Or this part? This one?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Same force but in opposite direction, sir.
Is it so? Did you apply all the
Yes, sir.
vector roots? Opposite direction, is it I cap?
Oh, yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right. You will get the same thing. There is a reason why I asked you people to do it. I'll tell you why. Just 2 minutes. Right. So, if we calculate F12 divided by L, you will still get mu naught I1 I2 divided by 2 pi d, but in the rightward direction. Okay. So, what is happening in this case? I1 I2. Since the currents are flowing in the same direction, this will experience a force in the leftward direction, and the first conductor will experience a force in the rightward direction. Are they tending to get attracted or repelled?
Attractive.
Attracted. So the conclusion to be made from here is, if currents in the conductors are in which direction? Same or opposite? Obviously, same direction, they attract each other. So if they're in the opposite direction, they repel each other. It is exactly the opposite of what happens with charge. So two like charges repel, no. Here the direction of like currents will attract. It will be exactly the opposite. Okay, this is how you can remember. Similarly, if there is one current flowing in the upward direction and downward direction, then one will get attracted and the other will get repelled. And they tend to repel each other. Okay, they repel each other. So when these kind of questions are asked, along with the magnitude, they will ask you whether attraction or repulsion is taking place, which carries half mark. But you should have a clarity of doing it. Okay. So this is how it works. So this is all about this concept. Next, let me see if there is a problem. Just a minute. So that's two, 3 problems. See, first observe this. Yeah, you can do this problem. You can do 4.5 and 4.7. So let's do 4.2. So there is a long straight wire which carries a current of 35 ampere. What is the magnitude of field at the point which is at a distance of 20 centimeters from the wire? So it's very simple question. Exercise 4.2. So there is a long straight wire which carries a current of 35 ampere. Find the magnitude of field. So what is the formula? B is equal to
mu naught I by 2 pi d.
That's it. So I is given, mu naught by 2 pi is known to you. So what is the value of mu naught by 4 pi? This is 10 power minus 7. So what will be the value of what will be the value of mu naught by 2 pi? That will be 2 into 10 power minus 7. That's it. Just multiply with 2 on both the sides, you will get the answer. So mu naught by 2 pi will be 2 into 10 power minus 7. The value of current is 35 divided by the distance is 20 centimeters. So 20 into 10 power minus 2, this and this will get cancelled. So 35 divided by 10 into 10 power minus 5. So 35 into 10 power minus 6 Tesla. So this will be the answer. Right. So what will be the answer for 4.5? So what is the magnitude of the magnetic force per unit length on a wire carrying a current of 8 ampere and making an angle 30 degree with the direction of uniform magnetic field? So force
0.6.
Force per unit length is what is asked. Okay. So what is the formula for force? F is equal to BIL sin theta. You need not write I into L cross B every time. So it is BIL sin theta. So B is how much? 0.15 into current is 8 into length is not given, sine 30 degrees, that is going to be 0.15 into 8 divided by 2 into L is. They're asking force per unit length, so F by L, this will go take 4 times. 0.15 into 4 is 0.6. So 0.6 Newton per meter is the answer. Now we'll do 4.7. Next. Two long and parallel straight wires A and B carrying currents of 8 ampere and 5 ampere in the same direction are separated by a distance 4 centimeter. Estimate the force on a 10 centimeter section of wire A.
So direct formula only, no sir.
Yes, yes. You need not sit and do the whole derivation again.
Okay, okay.
So 2 into 10 power minus 5.
Mu naught, I don't know the answer. I'll also do it along with you. So mu naught I1, I2 divided by 2 pi d. So mu naught by 2 pi is nothing but 2 into 10 power minus 7. So 2 into 10 power minus 7. And what is the value of current? 8 and 5. So 8 into 5 divided by what is the distance of separation? 4 centimeters. So 4 into 10 power minus 2. So this and this will get cancelled. So 4, how much is it? 20 into 10 power minus 5 is the amount of force per unit length, but they're asking the force on a part of a section. So 20 into 10 power minus 5 into what is the length? 10 centimeter, right? So 10 into 10 power minus 2 meter. So 200 into 10 power minus 7 or 2 into 10 power minus 5 Newton. Right? Is this the answer you got?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So in addition to this, you also need to mention whether it is an attractive or a repulsive force. Is it attractive or repulsive? It is an attractive force. Okay. So this is all about the force experienced by current semiconductor placed in external magnetic field. Okay. Next. So the next concept that I will explain is Ampere's circuital law. So write the heading as Ampere's circuital law. See, if you observe till now, every chapter has two laws. Right? If you look at the first chapter, you had Coulomb's law and Gauss law. So where did we use Coulomb's law? We used it for point charges, whereas Gauss law was used when you had a symmetry. Right? So it is not like you cannot use Coulomb's law to calculate for complicated systems. For complicated systems, what happens with Coulomb's law is you need to use a lot of calculus. So to avoid that, we can say Gauss law is actually used to simplify certain things. So the derivation part is not important for us. Similarly, if you look at the third chapter, there are two important laws which we discussed. One is Ohm's law and the second is Kirchhoff's law. So Ohm's law is generally used for simple circuits. Kirchhoff's law is used for slightly bigger networks. In a similar way, in this chapter also you have two laws. One is Biot-Savart law and the second is Ampere-Circuital law. So both Biot-Savart law and Ampere-Circuital law can be used to find the magnetic field due to current carrying conductors. But when we use Ampere-Circuital law is when you have asymmetry. It is similar to the Gauss law concept, except the fact that Gauss law uses the concept of electric flux. Here we don't use a concept of magnetic flux and all. We just have a law which is defined according to this equation. So there is the equation. Okay. So here it is defined like this. The line integral, make a note of it, line integral of B vector dot dl vector is always equal to, I'll use like this, is equal to mu naught times, there we use 1 by epsilon naught, mu naught times the current enclosed by there is a loop called as Amperian loop. So just like how we have Gaussian surface there, here we have something called as Amperian loop. Okay. So the line integral of B vector dot dl vector is equal to mu naught times the current enclosed by the Amperian loop. See, they will use the word line integral, but still they will put a symbol like this. So don't look at that and get confused, because you are integrating with respect to a one-dimensional value, we are calling it as line integral. Whereas in Gauss law, you will integrate it with respect to area. You write it as E dot ds. So that's why it's called as surface integral. Okay. So here it is a line integral like this. So mathematically you write it like this. The line integral of B vector dot dl vector will be equal to mu naught times the current enclosed by the Amperian loop. I can either write it as I net or I can write it as I enclosed. Okay, this is going to be the expression. See, one common factor if you observe, no, whatever you have learned in electrostatics, you learn it in the next chapter also, in the name of magnetism. So that time what happens is, everywhere, wherever you had epsilon naught will be replaced with 1 by mu naught. For example, in this chapter, if you observe, wherever you had 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught, this 1 by epsilon naught got replaced with mu naught. That is why you have the constant as mu naught by 4 pi. So everywhere this kind of replacement takes place. Similarly, in Gauss law also, you had charge enclosed divided by epsilon naught, whereas here you have, instead of 1 by epsilon naught, you have mu naught into, instead of charge, you have current. So that is how they are related. This whole relation will again come in electromagnetic waves. I hope this is clear. I'll tell you how to apply this Ampere-Circuital law. Okay, application part is important. Can anybody tell me what are the steps we followed for Gauss law? I would have given you certain steps. I would have suggested follow the same steps for every application. Anybody?
So for Gauss law or for the
Consider the type of charge density.
Gauss law, yeah. You need to consider the type of charge density.
charge distance?
Then,
Consider Gaussian surface.
and what should the Gaussian surface do? Where should it pass through?
Symmetrical
It should be symmetrical.
Symmetrical to the
about it.
distribution of charge.
It should be
passes
symmetrical.
through the electrical field, point where the electrical field
Very
should be.
good. It should pass through the point where the electric field is to be calculated. That is a very important point. Then what you will do? On the Gaussian surface, you will consider a small
Consider
area
a
dA,
small surface.
Assign the direction.
and you will assign a direction to it dA. Then you will write
If
E dot ds. Then you will equate it to 1 by epsilon naught times Q enclosed, and then you will finish the story, right? The same thing happens here. So the only difference is going to be that we call it as Gaussian surface because most of the Gaussian surfaces generally you consider a 3-dimensional. Here you call it as Amperian loop because this, for Ampere-Circuital law you will have all the loops being considered. Means you will consider 2-dimensional shapes around the charge distribution. Okay. Let's see how to do it. Observe. So I'll tell you the steps. See, these steps are not there in the book, make a note of it. Steps to be followed to apply Ampere's circuital law. So first, directly I'm stepping into this. Around the current carrying conductor, consider an Amperian loop. And how should that Amperian loop be? Similar to Gaussian surface, such that it passes through. Write it along with me. So I'm repeating it again. Around the current carrying conductor, consider an Amperian loop such that it passes through the point where the field is to be calculated. Okay. Second, consider a small element dl on the Amperian loop, and see, for Amperian it is REAN, don't write it as RIAN, it is here. See, sorry, I made a mistake. I'm sorry, it is IAN only. It is here. See, on the Amperian loop, and assign direction to it. So how do you assign direction? Is assign the direction of magnetic field to it. Assign the direction in which magnetic field is directed. This is the second step. Third step is apply the surface integral of B vector dot dl vector is equal to mu naught into I. Then not most of the cases, in all cases, B will come out, then you will be left out only with dl is equal to mu naught into I, because B and dl are given the same direction. Then integrate it and find the answer. Then solve the above expression. Or solve the above expression for magnetic field. Okay, so the result you solve. It's very simple. So I'm going to start with a known value. Okay. So the first application we are going to see is using Ampere's circuital law, derive an expression for a long straight current carrying conductors or a conductor. Using Ampere's circuital law, derive an expression for long straight current carrying conductor. You already know the expression. What is it? You did a problem now. Mu naught I
divided by 2 pi d.
2 pi d. Now we are
And
going.
expression, are we finding the magnetic field?
Yeah, you have to
Okay.
derive an expression for magnetic field. Magnetic field due to a straight current carrying conductor. Okay. Let's say the current is flowing in the upward direction. Now I'm going to apply Ampere's circuital law. I'm taking this point P. So around this point P, I need to consider an Amperian loop which is symmetric about the current. So symmetric about the current distribution. So what is the two-dimensional shape I can think of? The two-dimensional shape I can think of is a circle around it. Okay. So I'm taking a circle around it. Now, what is the direction of magnetic field due to this current carrying conductor? On the right of it, is it into the plane or out of the plane?
Into the plane.
Into the plane. right? So it is going to be into the plane means this is the way. Now if I take a small current carrying element dl, then this will also be into the plane. Okay, this is actually minus k cap. Since I cannot show it on the paper, I took it like this. So it is minus k cap. Now what are the second step to be followed? Sorry, we have finished two things. Around the current carrying conductor, consider an Amperian loop such that it passes through the point where the field is to be calculated. We consider an Amperian loop. Second, consider a small element on the Amperian loop and assign direction in which the magnetic field is directed. We have done that also. So third step is apply line integral of B vector dot dl vector is equal to mu naught into I enclosed. So B and dl will be in the same direction. So B dl cos 0 is going to be 1. So I can write it as B into the surface integral of dl is equal to mu naught into how many current carrying conductors does this Amperian loop enclose? There is only one current carrying conductor, so it encloses one value, right? So B into what is the value of line integral of dl? So if I integrate all the dl's on the Amperian loop, what is the value I'm going to get? If I add all the dl's on the circular Amperian, 2 pi
2 pi L.
2 pi d.
2 pi d.
2 pi d is equal to mu naught into I. So B will be equal to, so this is the expression you have studied, right? So B will be equal to mu naught I divided by 2 pi d. Okay. So those are you derive the expressions. Clear? Yeah.
We determining whether the B is going into the plane or out of the plane.
Which one? Sorry, I didn't get you.
How are we determining whether the magnetic
Right hand
field is
thumb
going?
rule. Right hand thumb rule. The first rule. See that I'm repeating it again. Don't get confused. To find the direction of magnetic field due to a current carrying conductor, right hand thumb rule. To find the direction of force experienced by a current carrying conductor, Fleming's left hand rule. So in this chapter, there are only two rules. Fleming's right hand rule comes only in the 6th chapter. So master them. So mu naught I divided by 2 pi into d. Okay. And one last concept for today is using Ampere's circular law, we are going to derive the expression for a solenoid. Topic 4.8. There are two devices, one is called as a solenoid and the second is called as a toroid. So these both are nothing but temporary magnets. You know what are electromagnets, right? So then, as we know, when current is passed through a conductor, they behave like a magnet, right? So the solenoid and toroid are temporary electromagnets which are used for certain purposes. So let me explain what a solenoid is. Observe. So, see. See, when I take any material, when I take a material and take a wire and wind around it, okay? If I wind the wire around this material in a helical path, if I wind it like this, then that particular device is what is called as a solenoid. Okay. So when the current is flowing through it, the wire will be like this. You can see from the side, the wire will be like this. It goes like this and comes in this way. Okay. So when you talk about the solenoid, now our work is to calculate what is the magnetic field due to the solenoid in between this rod. Okay. So that is what we are going to do. Now observe the diagram. So we are going to write like this: using Ampere's circuital law, derive an expression. So there is also an important derivation. Derive an expression for the magnetic field due to a solenoid. Okay. So actually, due to a long solenoid. So what do you mean by long solenoid is the length of the solenoid is more compared to its thickness. So long solenoid literally doesn't mean infinite length. You can say certain conductors are long when their length is more compared to the thickness. Okay. So I'll make a note of it. Long means length is more compared to its thickness. Okay. So how does a solenoid look like? If I take a material like this, okay, if a wire is wound around it like this in this way, if you wind the wire around it like this and you pass the current through the material, then this particular device is what is called as a solenoid. Now, since we need to apply the Ampere's circuital law, we need to consider an Amperian loop. Now, what we will do is we will try to redraw this. Let's first try to visualize how it works. So when I take the solenoid, when the wire is like this, when I take the wire like this, right? So when the wire is taken in this way, the current at the top is going into the plane and the current at the bottom will come out of the plane, right? The current is going to be into the plane and current will come out of the plane. Am I right? So when this is happening, see, if I need to draw this on a two-dimensional plane, then when a cylinder is projected on a two-dimensional plane, what will happen? It will look like a rectangle. So the projection of a cylinder on a two-dimensional plane will be a rectangle. So to this rectangle, I'm redrawing the diagram. Observe it clearly. So at the top, how is the current? Is it going into the plane or coming out of the plane? If I take the wire to be like this, is the current going away from me or coming towards me? Away from me, right? So I'm putting an into mark here. Here the into mark means it is not the direction of magnetic field, it is rather the direction of current. So this into mark or dot can be used for both. Okay, I'm using it like this. So these represent the direction of current. So direction of current at top is into the plane. At the bottom is out of the plane. Now what I'll do is I'll consider a small Amperian loop like this. The Amperian loop is considered in such a way that some portion is inside and some portion is outside. So if I take this as AB, CD, exactly half the portion is inside and half the portion is going to be outside. Let me say this side is of size A and this is of size B. So I'm taking it like this. Then how much will this size be? This will be A by 2 and this will be A by 2. Similarly, this is going to be B and the topmost portion is also going to be B. Right? So these are the steps to be followed. So what does Ampere's circuital law state? The surface integral of B vector dot dl vector is equal to mu naught into the current enclosed. Right? So what is going to be the total value of B dl? I can write it as observe. I can write it as line integral of magnetic field. So the current is like this. 1 minute. So B into see what I'm going to do is I'll write it as surface integral of AB into B into dl plus the surface integral of this is also going to happen. BC with B into DL plus the surface B dot DL actually, okay, plus the surface integral of CD B vector dot DL vector plus the surface integral of B dot DL for D into A. So what I did is I took the order. I went from A to B, B to C, C to D, and D to A. So this is the order that we are going to follow. Okay. So tell me, what will be the direction of magnetic field due to this current carrying element? How is the magnetic field going to be? Anybody? How to find? What will be the direction? If this is how the solenoid is, the current is flowing in this direction. What will be the direction of magnetic field? So place the thumb in the direction of current and curl the fingers as if you are holding it. So it will be in this direction. It will be towards me. So when this is happening, it will be like this. So the magnetic field will be in the leftward direction, like this. Okay. So this is the direction of magnetic field. Only direction of magnetic field possible. So what is the direction between the magnetic field and direction between AB?
Minus I cap.
So now I'm asking what is the angle between them? It
90
is, no. Angle between, see, B vector is in this direction, man. B vector is in this direction. What is the direction of AB? How are B and AB? B is like
parallel,
this.
parallel,
180
parallel.
degrees.
They're parallel to each other,
180.
right?
180
It
degrees.
is 180 degrees, but what will happen is, for a long solenoid, there will be no magnetic field present outside. You please make a note of it. For a long solenoid, write it down. For a long solenoid, there will be no magnetic field present outside it. Okay, at least close to the surface. Why it is so, I'll explain it in the next class because I want to complete this derivation. Okay. So the surface integral of AB will be 0. Why is it 0? So here, the surface integral of AB, which parameter is missing? Is magnetic field missing or DL missing? Or
Magnetic.
magnetic field is not there, so it will be 0. Plus, for BC, what is the angle between magnetic field and length?
90 degrees.
90 degrees. So this will also get cancelled. It is because theta is equal to 90 degrees. Here, what is the angle?
0.
So surface integral of B into DL, that is for CD, that will exist. Cos 0 will exist, right? Plus for DA, I hope you would have done. DA again it is 90 degrees. So this will also be 0, will be equal to mu naught into I enclosed, right? So B into the surface integral of DL will be equal to, B into the surface integral of DL will be equal to mu naught into I enclosed. So B into, what is the surface integral of DL? It is going to be the length of this portion. It is going to be length of BC. What is the length of BC? It is A will be equal to mu naught into I enclosed. So how to find I enclosed is, observe this. Let capital N be the number of turns. I made a mistake, right? It is capital B into B. This is right. This is CD.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So it is B into, okay, it will go. So let N be the number of turns present in the solenoid. And small n be the number of turns per unit length of the solenoid. Okay, then small n will be equal to capital N divided by the total length. Right. So if I take the length of the solenoid to be capital L, if I take the length of the solenoid to be capital L, then the number of turns that are present per total length divided by the length of the conductor will be the number of turns per unit length. Right. The total number of turns divided by the length will give you the number of turns. Then what will be the number of turns in length? What will be the number of turns in length B? What will be the number of turns in length B? So observe it. If the number of turns are capital N in length L, what will be the number of turns, that is N dash, n dash in length b.
N by L into B.
That's it. So it will be n by L into b. So n by L is nothing but small n.
Small n.
So small n into b will be the length. So if I take this to be the first expression, I have to erase this b. So this is the second expression. Then using 1 and 2, I can write it like this. B into B is equal to mu naught into what is I enclosed? I enclosed will be the number of turns in that particular length into the current that is flowing through that particular length. Okay. So B and B will get cancelled, which implies B will be equal to mu naught into N into I. This is the expression. So this is a magnetic field due to a solenoid which is present inside the surface. Just make a note of it. I will start with this concept again. So B is equal to mu naught into N into I. I'm saying I'll start with this concept because it is very important.
Sir, can you scroll a little up? Yes, sir. Sir, can you go down?
Yeah.
Sir, after that, can you show the diagram once again?
I'll do one thing. Since many of you have other classes, I just want to take the attendance. Immediately, I'll send you this document. You can make a note of it. So just wait for a minute. I will take the screenshots of attendance. Then you can leave. Just wait. Don't leave.